السائل عن مذهبي وعقيدتي رزق الهدى من للهداية يسأل.
أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدع مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار والفلك التي تجري في البحر بما ينفع الناس وما أنزل الله من السماء من ماء فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها وبث فيها من كل دابة وتصريف الرياح والسحاب المسخر بين السماء والأرض لآيات لقوم يعقلون. Most surely in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and the day, and the ships that run in the sea with that which profits men, and the water that Allah sends down from the cloud, then gives life with it to the earth after its death, and spreads in it all kinds of animals, and the changing of the winds and the clouds made subservient between the heavens and the earth, there are signs for people who understand.
The soul cries over the world, by Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. النفس تبكي على الدنيا وقد علمت إن السلامة فيها ترك ما فيها لا دار للمرء بعد الموت يسكنها إلا التي كان قبل الموت يبنيها فإن بناها بخير طاب مسكنها وإن بناها بشر خاب بانيها. The soul cries over this world and yet acknowledges that the happiness within it is to abandon what is within it. There is no house for the individual to live in after death, except for the one that he built before his death. And if built with goodness, pleasing, will his settlement become. And if built with evil, disappointed its builder will be. أين الملوك التي كانت مسلطنة حتى سقاها بكأس الموت ساقيها أموالنا لذوي الميراث نجمعها ودورنا لخراب الدهر نبنيها فكم من مدائن في الآفاق قد بنيت أمست خرابا ودان الموت دانيها. Where are the kings that were proudly dictating till the pourer of death poured death over them? Our money for our heirs, we collect it, and our homes for the corruption of time, we build it. And how many cities were built on the horizons, which eventually became devastated, whilst its citizens tasted death. لا تركنن إلى الدنيا وما فيها فالموت لا شك يفنينها ولا يفنيها لكل نفس وإن كانت على وجل من المنية آمال تقويها فالمرء يبسطها والدهر يقبضها والنفس تنشرها والموت يطويها. Don't submit to this world and what's within it. For surely without a doubt death will end us and end it. For every soul, even if it was powerful, had hopes that were overcome by death. The individual entertains it, the soul, while time kills it, and the individual opens it, while death puts an end to it. Surely the perfection of morals إن المكارم أخلاق مطهرة فالدين أولها والعقل ثانيها والعلم ثالثها والحلم رابعها والجود خامسها والفضل سادسها والبر سابعها والصبر ثامنها والشكر تاسعها والدين باقيها. Surely the perfection of morals is pure. Religion is its first, intellect is its second, and knowledge is its third, and tolerance is its fourth, and generosity is its fifth, and graciousness is its sixth, and activity serving the people is its seventh, and thankfulness is its eighth, and patience is its ninth, and gentleness is its preserver. والنفس تعلم أني لا أصادقها ولست أرشد إلى حين أعصيها. And the soul knows that I do not befriend it, and I won't take the wise step to disobey it.
Before I start, I want to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, the most just. All praises, glory and gratitude belong to Him for the works that we do. We're going to go through Go Rap. How many of you guys have done Go Rap before? Nobody?
What?
Yeah, one brother, yeah, mashallah. Has anyone gone through Go Rap? We're going to briefly go through that because we don't want to make this where we're out here, we're talking, and you guys fall asleep. Yeah? We want to make it interacting. We want questions, mainly because we're going to go through the Go Rap probably 15-20 minutes. We're not going to take too much time on it. We just want to give you the basic way of doing dawah, the basic way, and you guys can obviously, with each point that we mentioned, you can go home and do your own research. What we're going to do is, have you guys got pen and papers? If you haven't, please look. If you want to write something down, you know, if you're feeling a bit pious today, you don't want to say out loud, you can write it down on the paper. If the brothers can get some papers and give it around to the brothers. If you want to ask out loud, you can ask out loud, it's not a problem. If you want to write it down, do write it down. After the Go Rap, we're going to have a little break. And please guys, don't use this break to run off. Come back inshallah. And then we're going to deal with Q&A inshallah. So regarding dawah, or it can be regarding the seerah, if there's something that we can personally advise you, that's within our means, then we can. So yeah, just keep that in mind inshallah. You can write your questions down now. Now, we're just going to go through Go Rap. A lot of the times, unfortunately, we as Muslims, we don't know our religion. Yeah? And this goes to me as well. And wallahi, it's sad. It's sad that atheism is popularized like it's something, it's the truth. Wallahi, I don't understand. When I speak to atheists, the guy is defining nothing for me. Like I'm saying to him, can something come from nothing? He goes, yes. Like these are the kind of individuals, and I'm not belittling them. I'm not saying these individuals should look down upon. I'm just saying how silly it sounds. And unfortunately, we don't research into our religion, and the Ummah is in such a state, and wallahi, I don't mean this to sound humble, yeah? That people like myself are role models. Wallahi, it's sad. I'm being honest with you. I'm not trying to sound humble. Wallahi, I'm being honest. People like myself have become role models. Wallahi, it's sad. I'm being straight with you. It's sad. We should learn our religion, and people that are much better than me. Much better than me, because I'm nothing. I'm learning the Arabic now. Wallahi, I'm just saying this because I should keep myself humble. You know? And it's a reminder. It's a reminder of the state of the Ummah. If we equip ourselves with this knowledge, wallahi, you don't need people like me. My objective is just to be a bridge for you guys or the youth. Yeah, because a lot of brothers here, mashallah, they're on point. But I'm targeting the youth. And my job is to be a bridge. I just want to be that bridge where you cross over and go to the scholars. That's our job, inshallah. This will be a reminder for myself and everyone, inshallah. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through Go Rap. If you guys, who knows what Go Rap stands for? The first letter G. Wow, mashallah, yeah, Tawhid on point. G is for God, right? How do we prove God exists? Yeah? Can you guys hear me without this mic? Do you mind it? Because I don't like using this mic. Is it okay? Yeah? I'll speak loud. Yeah? Okay, thank you. Mohammed Hijab, he likes using the mic. So yeah, how do we prove God Almighty exists? It's very simple. Yeah, this is the argument that we use, and I'm going to release a video on this topic where I actually discuss with an atheist, and you can see for yourself the answers, right? The answers they try to bring up. Yeah, we have three options, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, or were they created by nothing, or were they the creators of themselves, or did they create the heavens and the earth? Rather, they are not certain. And believe me, they are not certain. Because once we pose this question to them, they'll come and say, after they've got nothing else to say, they say, I don't know, let's suppose. This is the argument we usually say, yeah? We have three options, yeah? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran as well. Did the universe and everything that's in it, did it come from nothing? Did it create itself? Or was it created? These are the three options. Play the devil's advocate. Is there anything else we can add in here? Anything else? Have any of you guys interacted with atheists? Do they bring anything else? Usually, with us, they say it's infinite. They say the universe is infinite. So we say, okay, our atheist friend, yeah? Let's call him Mark for now, yeah? Okay, Mark, you're happy? Okay, let's add infinite as well. It either came from nothing, it either created itself, it was created, or it's infinite. No problem, let's go with that, yeah? You can write this down as well on your phones, inshallah, yeah? Those of you who haven't heard of it before, yeah? It's very basic, very simple, yeah? Can something come from nothing? You guys can talk. Trust me, you can talk. We can do this. Let's have it interacting. Can something come from nothing?
No.
Yes. Simple, yeah? What example would you give? Like to prove? Sadly, we have to give examples to prove that from nothing, nothing comes. How? What can we? Yes, what?
Phone.
A phone, yeah. Okay, go on. Give me. How?
Manufacturer creates a phone, designs it, sell.
Okay, but they might say evolution. It's simple, yeah. If we have 0, would we ever get 1? If we had 1 trillion zeros, would you ever get 1? No. Okay, from nothing, nothing comes. Sadly, they might come and say, what's the definition of nothing? The definition of nothing is the absence of something. Yes? It's the absence of something. If they say to you, oh, what do you mean by nothing? It's sad, but they ask you this. You know? You just say nothing is nothing, my friend. Nothing. Yeah? It's the absence of something. So we know from nothing, nothing comes. Good. We have 3 options left. Yeah? Can the universe create itself?
No.
Why not? You can't just say no.
There has to be a cause.
There has to be a cause. Yeah, you can answer it like that. Or what I usually say is, look, it's an impossibility because for it to create itself, it has to exist and not exist at the same time, which is an impossibility. Yeah? How could something be there and not be there at the same time? Yeah? You can give the example of, can my mother give birth to herself? Yeah, it sounds a bit gruesome. But, yeah, you can give it. Just give them an idea so they can picture it in their head and they can say, oh, that's disgusting. So, like, you know, it can't happen, yeah? It cannot create itself. Good. Now, the other option that they usually say, because usually we go to, okay, it has to be created, they'll say infinite. How do we deal with the argument of the universe is infinite? Usually what I say is that infinite does not exist in the real world. It's a concept. If I say to any of you guys, calm down and write the number infinite for me. Can any of you guys do it? You can't, because the number infinite, it doesn't exist. Yeah? Another example you can give is, for example, you can say, if there's infinite amount of universes, and 2 universes disappear, how many universes do you have? Some say infinite, some say infinite minus 2. If you said, for example, what if there's 5 extra universes, they'll say infinite plus 5. Yeah? That's a contradiction. How are you going to say infinite minus 2 or infinite plus 5? If it's infinite, it's there forever. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it's a contradiction. I use universe. You can say biryani. You can say if I had an infinite amount of biryanis and I ate 2, how many do we have? Yeah. You can use banana if you like. Use whatever you like. Yeah. Infinite doesn't exist in the real world. Was that a Somali that laughed about the banana? No, I'm joking. I love banana, not with rice. So infinite does not exist in the real world. Yes? Very simple. So the only one that we have left is it has to be created. Yeah? Now, a lot of times when we do this, the atheists sometimes might come with like really ridiculous stuff, yeah? But sometimes they might say, you know what, okay. He'll say, let's suppose for argument's sake, there's God. You're going to say, no. Not today, there's no argument's sake. Because we're giving you the evidence, yeah? There you go. We asked you, do you want to add anything else? You wanted to add things. We went through it point by point. The only option that we have, rationally and logically speaking, is that it has to be created. So you can't come and say to me, for argument's sake, because they use that to run off, like, okay, I'm just going to suppose there's a God. You can't say that. It's created. Simple as, you know? So once they've accepted that, then you go into this, which they will accept. But most of the time, what they will say to you is, okay, good, brother Ali, okay, there is God, okay. Then who created God? This is the question that they will ask you most of the times, yeah? Now, this is the way we deal with it, yeah? Okay. Now, we say that the question has a fallacy within itself, yeah? To say who created God, yeah? Because we believe everything that began to exist has a cause, universe. Allah did not begin to exist, so he has no cause, yeah? So we can give the example of, okay, if you're asking me that question, then I'm going to say, okay, then who created that God that created that God? Then who created that God that created that God that created that God? I can say, okay, there's more than two gods. Then I can say, did this God create this God, or did this God create this God? Which one is more superior? Yeah? That's what Allah SWT says in the Quran. Indeed, if there was more than one God, there will be conflict. Yeah? So you need to ask them this question. Another way you can say is, for example, if, for example, I wanted to buy Brother Mohammed an apple juice, yeah? So I say, Brother Mohammed, I want to buy an apple juice, but I need to ask the brother behind me. I need to ask Brother Musa, yeah? You guys know Musa?
No. Don't
Yeah?
know.
You guys don't like him, yeah? Okay. So I say, Brother Musa, do you give me permission to buy Brother Mohammed an apple juice? Brother Musa says, thank you, Brother Ali. Yeah? I need to ask the brother behind me. He asks the brother behind him. He says, brother, do you give me permission to give permission to Brother Ali so he can buy apple juice to Brother Mohammed? If this goes on forever, would I ever buy Brother Mohammed an apple juice?
No.
Exactly. So you can use this argument because if there was more than one God, then the question comes, who created that God? And if this is, it's called infinite regress. If this goes on forever, you would have nothing in the beginning. Yes? That's in a nutshell. It's just that. That's it. There's nothing extra to add into it. Simple. Yeah, please write it down. It either came from nothing, it either created itself, infinite, or it was created. And we also covered the oneness of Allah. Why God has to be one. There can't be more than one. Now these points that I've mentioned, go and look into it more. Yeah? Oneness of Allah, Tawheed. Yeah? The Tawheed of Islam. You need to understand, not the Tawheed of the Christians. The Christians come and say, yeah, we believe in one God. But they say three in one, yeah? So don't get it confused. So these points that we mentioned, go home, go to your teachers, have a teacher, look into the Tawheed of Islam, study it properly, understand it properly. So we're just giving you points which you can use, shape it up yourself, give your own examples yourself. Is that brother putting his hand up? Okay, I feel it.
Regarding the point about the universe being infinite,
Yeah.
existing forever, you just said that the infinity doesn't exist in
Yeah, it doesn't exist in the world.
Where how do you come to that conclusion? So is that based on your observation?
No, because it's basically, if I say to you, give me an example of something that's infinite.
So in the physical world.
Physical world.
Isn't that,
Physical world, no, of course, physical world.
so isn't that going to be based on our observations?
No, of course. But even if we don't have an observation, for example, if I said to you, write me the number of infinite. Like it doesn't exist in the real world, Aki. It's like you can come and write, fill this whole place up with 99999, yeah? I'll go to the end part you just wrote and add another 9. And then I'll add another 9. It would never, infinite doesn't have like this figure where you're like, boom, it stops. Do you get what I'm trying to say? In the real world, infinite doesn't exist. There's something they call potential infinite. That's mathematics, yeah? Number just carries potential. But infinite in the real world, it does not exist. Are you happy with that, or are you just staring at me? We can talk about it in detail more after. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so now that's proving God's existence, His oneness. Now Brother Mohammed Hijab, he's going to talk about the Quran, revelation. How do we know the Quran is from Allah, and how we can prove that? And straight after that, I'm going to prove the argument of how we can prove the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final messenger. And after that, we're going to go straight into Q&A. So make sure, I would highly appreciate if every single one of you guys had a question to ask. You know, it'd be really good, it'd be really interactive. Because we don't want to come here and talk about something, and then we've got a brother who's got doubt about Islam, we've got somebody who's on the verge of leaving Islam. So we want to tackle each individual issue, inshallah. So Brother Mohammed Hijab is going to go through, inshallah, Revelation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, hopefully at this stage where you're speaking to the atheist interlocutor, he's at a stage now where he sees at least a logic in believing in one God, yeah? It should be that he sees the logic. And this is one of many arguments that can be put to the atheist. One of many different things you can say to them. This is what is referred to classically as the cosmological argument. There are some parts of truth in it. Also, there's a fine-tuning argument you can put forward, and there's also the fitra argument, which is an Islamic argument, purely an Islamic argument, that we all believe in God self-evidently. After you've posed these arguments to the atheist, you're at a stage now where he's going to ask you, how can you be sure that your prophet is, or how can we be sure that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is in fact the true prophet? So here, I'm going to offer 7 different points, okay? 7 different points, and I'm going to do that obviously because of brevity and the time that we have. So instead what I'm going to do is give you one specific example with each of those 7 points. I will start with point number 1, really, which is that the Quran itself is a linguistic miracle, according to our standard. Now, if you think about it, they'll say this is quite subjective. They'll say, look, that's your perspective. You're looking at the Quran from your subjective perspective, and you're introducing kind of conclusions from it that it's miraculous. How can you actually physically prove that it's linguistically miraculous? Point 1, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَى عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. That if you are in fact in any doubt of what we have revealed to our slave, then produce a surah like it. So really this is what's referred to as an inimitability challenge. That the surah of the Quran, the chapters of the Quran are in fact inimitable. You cannot produce something like it. Now it's interesting in the tafsir of this surah that, that Mujahid, who is the student of Ibn Abbas, he said in regards to the part of the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَدَعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring your witnesses from other than God if you are in fact truthful. He says, مِنْ أَهْلِ الْإِخْتِصَاص. He says the people of expertise. Or مِنْ أَهْلِ الْفَنْ. Or, you know, the people of Lugha Arabiya, the language of the Arabs. Obviously at the time, they were specialists of Arabic language. Yeah, even disbelieving people. Like Abu Jahl and Walid ibn Mughira. These individuals that were known to understand the language. They were immersed in the language. They testify to the fact that this language, or this Quran, de-scoped everything that was known at the time. It de-scoped everything that was known at the time. In style, in content, in rhythmic patterns. It's incredible. The way they completely de-scoped everything. And this is why the Quran, actually there is a quantitative way of measuring its performance, really, as a word of God or a truth. Because it expanded, it went, people took it, there was qabul, people accepted the Islamic and Quranic message. Despite the fact that there were others claiming prophethood, like Musaylim al-Kadhab and these individuals, their message did not expand. The Quranic message did expand. The people of expertise, at the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they accepted it as something which was extraordinary from a linguistic perspective. Now, I'm not going to go into specific details of how we can prove that the Quran is a linguistic miracle by going into specific details. I'm going to give you this one point, and this is something that inshallah all of us can make a life kind of learning curve to look at the linguistic subtleties of the Quran and to come to that conclusion ourselves. Point 2, which is an interesting thing. So we said point 1 was the language. Point 2 is very interesting. It's really the structure of the Quran. The structure of the Quran includes the chronology of the Quran, meaning how it's all put together, how it's all structured from 1 to, chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 114, verse 4 or 5. So the chronology of the Mus'haf, the ayat, how it's all put together, is something which actually cannot be explained. I'll tell you why. Really, if you think about the Quran, it was revealed to Rasulullah ﷺ in a way which was responsive. So people would go to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and ask him questions. They would ask him questions. And he would respond in the form of revelation. In many different occasions this happened. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask you about drinking and alcohol and gambling, or the intoxicants and gambling. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the soul. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ. They ask you about the new moons. There's so many, they ask you. The Prophet Muhammad, he came forward and answered in the form of revelation. Which means to say that he did not have the time there was no editorial process. So he literally responded, with the Quran. Having said this, despite this reality, you'll find that the Quran has an incredible knitted togetherness and interconnectedness which cannot really be explained unless you want to say that he knew the future. And I'll tell you how. It's like when you look into the night sky and you see the stars. It looks like a jumble of different, an unorganized jumble, right? But when you look closer, you realize that there are constellations. In a similar way, when you look at the Quranic chapters, all of them are organized thematically. All of the surah of the Quran from chapter 1 to 114 are organized in a thematic way. Such that you'll find that the surah of the Quran is connected inextricably with the surah next to it. It's connected inextricably with the surah next to it, and that the beginning and the end of the surah itself is inextricably connected, and the themes exist in clusters in surah. So I'll give you an example. In fact, let me try and make this interactive myself. There's 114 chapters. Give me two numbers, my friend here, Somali brother in the front seat. Give me two numbers which are right next to each other in the Mus'haf. Yeah, just two numbers from 1 to 114. Any numbers you want. Okay, nice one. 2 and 3 is Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran, yeah? Okay, Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Surah Al-Fatiha, Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim wa al-maghdubi alayhim wa al-dhalin. That we are asking for our own salvation, right? And we said the path of those who you favor, not the path of those who have earned your anger, nor of those who have gone astray. So we want to be of the path of those righteous people. In the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So the reference here has been made to Al-Muttaqeen. The Muttaqeen are the God-conscious people. Clearly, it's kind of like an istijaba, or kind of a response to the dua that we made in Surah Al-Fatiha. Because we make a dua in Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha actually is a dua. In the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, it's almost as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining to us who the righteous people are. The ones who الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. Yeah? So these individuals, the ones who establish the prayer and this and that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the descriptions of those individuals. In the ending of the surah, which is chapter 2 of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he says, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, he mentions the kitab, the Quran. In the end, he mentions the kutub. Because آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه المؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. So the reference is made again. So once again you find tasalsul, or what's referred to as tasalsul in Arabic, kind of like a chain reaction. Everything is connected in an incredible way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he starts Surah Al-Imran, which is chapter 3 of the Quran, Alif Lam Mim, in a similar way as he started Surah Al-Baqarah, and then it says, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayy al-qayyum, yeah, which is pretty much Allah is the one who is the al-hayy, the ever-living, al-qayyum, the one who is lets everything stand in really. So really here what we have is نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق. Once again reference to kitab. So the kitab, which is the Quran in this instance, وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل, and then he sent down the Torah and the Injil. So in other words, there's a theme that continues in these surah, which if you think about it, Surah Al-Baqarah itself took about 2.5 years to be revealed, according to the Mufassirin. It took about 2.5 years to be revealed. It wasn't something which was revealed straight away. Surah Al-Baqarah is the longest surah of the Quran. Surah Al-Imran is probably the second longest surah of the Quran. It's 200 verses. So you find that, once again, this kind of interconnectedness couldn't have been realized by human beings. And at the end of Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's been referenced here because إِنَّ سَمَعْنَا يُنَادِي لِلْإِيمَانِ أَنْ آمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ فَآمَنَّا. Yeah? So we heard the messenger calling to Iman. So once again, you find the reference to messengers and the Iman, which is what was being referred to in the beginning of the surah. And this goes on for the whole of the Quran, by the way. And the whole, you'll find that these two surahs have so much in common. Surah Al-Imran, Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran. It's incredibly interconnected. Surah Al-Baqarah was to the Jews, Surah Al-Imran was to the Christians. If you think about it. Surah Al-Baqarah talks about the Jews all throughout. Surah Al-Imran talks about Christians throughout. Jesus and this and that. So you've got to realize here that there is an unusual interconnectedness. Here we have the second thing. So number one is the linguistic miracle of the Quran. Number two is the structural coherence of the Quran. Number three is a very powerful one, is the prophecies of the Quran and the Sunnah. The prophecies of the Quran and the Sunnah. You'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes incredibly precise prophecies about the future. And this, wallahi, is from a mathematical perspective. If you just rely on probability theory, is enough for someone to come to complete faith. And it does not require a language, it does not require language knowledge at all. You don't need to be mahir in Lugha Arabiya. You don't need to be good at Arabic language. Like, for example, I'll give you one example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Rum, chapter number 30 of the Quran, verses 1 to 6. He says, Alif Lam Mim. Yes? Alif Lam Mim غُلِبَتِ الرُّومِ. The Romans have been defeated. في أدنى الأرض, in a nearby lowland, وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون, and after their defeat they will come to defeat, i.e. the enemy. At that particular time there were the Romans and the Persians fighting each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that the Romans had been defeated. And that they, in 3 to 9 years, because في بضع سنين لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in 3 to 9 years that the Romans will come back and they will defeat the Persians in a nearby land. And that day that the Muslims will be rejoicing. It's really interesting to see the kind of detail that is put in this prophecy, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning where, when and how this defeat is going to take place. Now really think to yourself for a second. If someone is going to make an estimate about the future, and they put 3 of those variables, very specific type variables, and he's talking about the future in this way, to what extent do we know that how big are the options, how big are the possibilities that this could go right? Well, it's very small. Actually, the possibility of a human being making such a guess and coming correct is slim from a probability perspective, probably below 1%. Just this alone, and I'm telling you, there are literally, in the Quran itself, I'm not talking to you about just the Sunnah. In the Sunnah there's tons. Literally there are tons of the prophecies. I don't want to go into it. Inshallah, I'm going to release a video on it soon. But literally tons of, you'll be shocked. SubhanAllah, you'll be shocked. The Prophet tells us where Islam was going to spread. You know? In the countries, he specifies different countries. And he's, SubhanAllah, in a very weak position. He tells us, the Islam will spread. You're going to go into Ghazwa with the people of Sindh and Hind and Pakistan and India. And, India, definitely the hadith is sahih. Sindh, maybe the hadith has weakness. Yemen, Asham, Misr, all of these countries, Egypt, where Islam has spread, the Prophet told us it would spread in that way. How Islam has spread, the Prophet told us how it would work. And everything, subhanAllah, the Roman Empire, these things are incredible. And wallahi, the more you give them evidences in this regard, you'll find that the probability of someone being able to, in that position that he was in, someone being able to come up with all of this himself is 0. Just this by itself is 0. It's literally 0. So this should be enough. And by the way, I made a new thesis recently. I made a new thesis. People, if you ask an atheist, or let's say like an agnostic or something, what is your truth standard? The truth standard that they usually have is usually a scientific truth standard. They say, I believe in science. Yeah, usually it's like that. What I say with this, just number 3, the point 3 that we've just mentioned here, is that our truth standard is more powerful than your truth standard. Why and how? Because we say that our truth standard depends upon hindsight or retrospective knowledge. So for example, those prophecies, like the fact that the Romans had beaten the Persians, that happened and that's that. That can't change. Science, the scientific method, is defined as like, doing your hypothesis, then going into the laboratory and then, peer review. Any scientific fact can change. And by the way, there's something called cytometrics now, which is like an oversight body which kind of shows you how much corruption is going on in science and how much science changes. In other words, in a nutshell, science changes. Science changes. Scientific facts change. Whoever tells the opposite to this does not know what's referred to as the philosophy of science. There's a book called the Structures of Scientific Revolution by Thomas Kuhn. He tells you how Einsteinian physics took over, Newtonian physics. And not only does science change as facts, but the actual framework within which science works and operates in, that can change as well. From that perspective, we say that, look, your standard of truth is not incorrigible, which means it can change. Our standard of truth is incorrigible. In other words, it cannot change. The fact that the Romans had beaten the Persians is something that's not going to change in history, unless you want to say that history can change, which would be an illogical argument. So from our perspective, we have a stronger epistemological base, meaning our truth, when we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran, and that the Quran itself is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have evidences for this. Just bringing this evidence, point number 3, which I mentioned, the predictions, gives us a stronger epistemological base than the scientists and the whole scientific community. Because they cannot guarantee that their framework and their facts will not change. We can guarantee that the predictions will not change. So, point 4, so we talked, 1 is the language, 2 is the structure, 3 is the predictions of the Quran and the Sunnah, which I tell you, without mubalagha, without hyperbole, is literally in the Quran at least a dozen. And the Sunnah, dozens and dozens of predictions. It will be shocking for you to know how many there are. Number 4, and we've talked about science, is science, but I'll tell you how we use it. We have to be very careful how we use science in the Dawah, because, as we said before, science for us does not constitute an ultimate truth. Some people in the past, I don't want to name names, some da'is have focused all on science, and I believe this is the wrong approach. Why? Because they'll say, look, we prove Islam using science. Okay, there's a hidden shirk in this. Why? Because are you telling me that the epistemological base is science and we're using this ruler of science to find out how true Islam is? So what you've done there is you've given the ultimate authority to the scientific community, which we're not allowed to do as Muslims. Yes? And there's no reason for us to give them the ultimate authority, even from a logical perspective. So we say, instead of doing that, the better way to approach it is use conditional sentences. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. You say to the interlocutor, the one who's the detractor, or the interlocutor, the person who doesn't believe in what you believe in, you say to them, if you believe that science is the objective or is a good standard of truth or a great standard of truth, if you believe that, then of the 6 major world religions, and certainly of the ancient world religions, Islam is the most closely correlated to science. That's the reality. So if you, for example, compare Islam with Christianity, I'll give you one example, yeah? Just one example that I always use because it's an easy example, but I can literally give you, once again, dozens of examples. The example of the shape of the earth. The Quran says in Surah Al-Zumar, يكور الليل على النهار ويكور النهار على الليل وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى. Yeah? Chapter 39 verse 5. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He rolls the day into the night and rolls the night into the day, and he lets the sun and the moon run their orbits or their course. Yeah? This verse, some people of old, I'm not talking about me, or someone who's already been influenced by the 21st century narrative. I'm talking about our scholars back in the days. People like Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who died 210 after Hijri. He said this. He said to his students that the earth is round. Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that there's ijma' that the earth is round, that the universe is round. In Kitab al-Arsh Majmu'at al-Fatawa. Ibn Hazm said the same thing, and he used this verse as istidlal. Ibn Hazm was a literalist. He's a Zahiri. And he used this verse, and he said that this shows that the earth is round. Why? Because if it's being rolled into it, that means to say that that which has been below it is also spherical. Right? And then, by the way, this at his time sounded ridiculous, and that's why some other scholars, Islamic scholars, refuted them for this, because it sounded if you think about it conceptually, how can you have a ball and we're all on it, right? We must be falling off if you don't know about gravity. Well, obviously this was something that was mentioned at the time. So, and they used the Quran as istidlal. If you compare this with the biblical narrative, there's no tafsir of the Bible which says that the earth is round. There's لا يحتمل تأويل. What you mean is there's no way you can interpret the Old Testament or the New Testament as saying that the earth is round. In fact, the Old Testament is incredibly clear that the earth is circular, right? But it's flat and circular. That's what you'll get, and it's supported with pillars. So you bring forward to the atheist, detractor, whatever, you say to them, if your standard of truth is that the earth is science, you cannot go for Christianity, because look, in the book of Psalms chapter 75 verse 3, in the book of Acts chapter number 10 verse 11, in the book of Job chapter number 9 verse number 6, it all indicates to an earth which is flat and it has pillars. So, and all of them were first in, they accepted that the earth is flat and it's got pillars. So just one easy example of the roundness of the earth. Yeah, and this is a kind of less speculative science anyways. For us, we have tafsirs going all the way back to, you could say, the early generations, telling us that the earth is round. They have no such tafsir. And I've asked them. They have not even one. All of them say that the earth is flat. Now, number five. So we talked about science. Science you've got to use wisely, because remember, we don't say we're going to use this science to prove Islam. No. If anything, we use Islam to prove science, because we have a stronger epistemological base. But what we do say is that if, and it's a conditional sentence, if you, the interlocutor, or the detractor, someone who's trying to attack Islam, if you believe that science is an ultimate truth, in that case, you'll come to the conclusion that science is most correlated with Islam of all world religions. Number 5, so we talked about 1, language, 2, structure, 3, predictions, 4, science. And number 5 here is the character of Rasulullah ﷺ himself. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Bayyinah, لم يكن الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب والمشركين منفكين حتى تأتيهم البينة. رسول من الله يتلو صحفا مطهرة. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in that chapter number 98 verses 1 and 2, he says that the people, the disbelievers, yes, were in a state of disagreement until the Bayyinah came to them. And what was the Bayyinah? The Bayyinah meaning the evidence, the very clear evidences. Who was the Bayyinah? It was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. He was he himself. The fact that he has such character, okay, and he was known to the people, to the primary audience. He was known to be someone who was trustworthy. He was known to be someone who was Ameen, as-Sadiq al-Ameen. He was known to be that individual. And by the way, if in the Quran, if you read, you realize that, for example, it says, وَطَاعًا تَمَّ أَمِينٌ. He's someone who was named the trustworthy one. If the primary audience had contention with this verse would have no currency. In other words, the Quran, if it was the Rasulullah ﷺ himself making it all up, as the detractors want to put it up, then the moment he said that, there would have been refutation on that point. We don't have any narration of people rejecting his truthfulness, or of people rejecting the fact that he was trustworthy. We don't have any narrations of such an incident, and we have narrations of absolutely everything. There's no one saying, Abu Jahl didn't come and say, but you're not a trustworthy person, though. So his character itself is something worthy of note. And that's why studying the seerah, going back to the ilm thing that the brother was talking about, is important. Because it puts things in perspective. It gives us a love of Rasulullah ﷺ as well. And it gives us a closer understanding of how it couldn't be that this man was telling a lie. Number 6 is the mention of Rasulullah ﷺ's name in previous dispensations and books. And this is fulfillment of the Quranic narrative in other than the Quran and the Sunnah. So you find in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and these books, that you do find, it's very shocking actually, that this can be rejected, because there's so many clear verses in the Old Testament that signal to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And just go home today as a piece of homework and read Isaiah 42, just the whole chapter, Isaiah in the Bible. Wallahi, it's baffling how people can reject the Rasulullah ﷺ based on this. just based on this. Talking about someone coming to the people of Kedar. Who are the people of Kedar? They are the Arabs. And it goes specific detail. The mounts of Salah. Salah are mountains in Medina. What prophet went to Medina? Yani after, when? When was there a prophet that went to Medina? And when you look into the Bible and you look at, you do istiqra, you look at all the parts of the Old Testament and stuff like that, you realize that there's no doubt that even within the text, the corrupted text that we have today of the Bible, the corrupted text, you find an indication to Rasulullah. No doubt. No doubt. So how can it be the case that we have this and we reject this? You see, from a Christian perspective, for example. But also you'll find that this fulfills the Quranic narrative from other than the Quran. So it's not just the Quran being used as the document here of scrutiny or analysis. Point 7, which is an interesting point. And there's a book that's written in Arabic, I think it's called I'jaz al-Quran min A'jami al-Quran, which is, I don't know who wrote it, to be honest, I forget the person's name, but he does some kind of analysis on the words in the Quran, especially those words. And in English, there's a book written by this scientist called Maurice Bucquois, Moses and the Pharaoh, something like this, 1994, he wrote it. And basically, this is a really interesting point. There are some words you'll find in the Quran which are correlated to languages which were dead at the time. So for example, the hieroglyphic language, it was dead. It was only in the 1700s, maybe 1790 or something like that they found the Rosetta Stone. With this Rosetta Stone, they were able to unpack the language, the Arabic hieroglyphic language. Yet, you'll find that references that are made, for example, to Musa, are incredibly accurate, when we now know, in hindsight, the language, which is the hieroglyphic language. And the same thing could be said about this thing with Joseph. Joseph, not the carpenter in the New Testament, I'm talking about the Old Testament Joseph, who was, no doubt, he was referred to as, let's say, Joseph, he referred to his person as a pharaoh, the person who was in charge of the people at the time. The Quran says, no, he's a king. And we know that the word pharaoh comes from the hieroglyphic word para. And this word hieroglyphic word para, it stopped being in use according to, at the time of what you would call the pharaoh of that particular time, or the ruler of that particular time. And this can be seen even in Britannica Encyclopedia and these things. It's not a mystery. So these are 7 points. I could go on, but 7 is, let's just say, a solid number that people can remember. And therefore, with these 7 points, inshallah, if you do meet an interlocutor, if you meet someone who wants to engage with Islam, he says, what proof do you have? Well, it's not like we don't have proof. The Quran is filled with ayat. Ayat itself means evidences and proof. Every ayah in the Quran is a proof. Every ayah in the Quran is a proof. But we're trying to make things easier for the people. And with this, inshallah, I'll just recite some verses, because now talking about the Quran has made me think about maybe another aspect. Because wallahi, just reciting the Quran like the young man was reciting the Quran at the beginning could be enough. Wallahi, it could be enough. People knowing the meanings of the Quran. A lot of people come to Islam, yes, based on just listening to the Quran and pondering over the meanings. Because it's very powerful, wallahi. For that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. It says that this Quran, had it gone down on the Jabal, on the mountain, the mountain itself would collapse. Min khashyatillah, out of awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It would just be destroyed. Why? Because it's such a powerful book, subhanAllah. And it says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. And these are the parables that we send forward to humankind so that they may think. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes himself in many different ways, and this is in chapter 59 of the Quran, in the last verses, probably verse 22, 23, 24. So I say to you guys, wallahi, if we have, and this is the thing, we have the ammunition of the Quran, and we have the ammunition of Islam, there's no way we can't provide an evidence for these individuals. And if we compare, wallahi, our religion with their religions, I'm not meaning this in a kind of overly polemical way, they have no argument, and there's too many contradictions in their religion, in their religions, in the 6 major world religions, in the 5 other world religions, and we have the winning argument. It's not just by virtue of the fact that we're more intelligent than them. Wallahi, we are guided only because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we have to show the people, yes, the evidences so that they can embrace Islam. Okay, and Ali's gonna... Oh, you go.
Okay. So, yeah, basically that's the arguments that you can use. Look into it more, research into it more. You can answer them all day, all night, yeah? Because if the person, he's just there to just waste your time, you can just answer, he's going to ask more questions, yeah? Bring them back to Tawheed, bring them back to the oneness of Allah. Prove that God exists. If they're a Christian, tell them the oneness of Allah. Talk about Islam. Because once they accept that God exists, His oneness, the Quran is from Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad is His final messenger, all those questions in a nutshell are already answered. Because if you're accepting the book, you can't come, Islam is not a buffet. You can't come and say, I want this, I reject that. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Then if they want to know more and say, you know what, this, I read an English translation that it says you can beat your wife. Then you can elaborate. Then you can help them to build their iman stronger to certain misconceptions. But understand that the main thing is to call them back to Islam, to the oneness of Allah, and that will cover the whole questions as a whole. That's why we kind of give importance to Go-Rap. It's important. So how do we prove that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a prophet? Very simple, it's very quick. Before I go into that, Brother Muhammad mentioned science, yeah? That's why we need to be very, very careful, because I learned this a bit of the hard way. How? Because I was speaking to an atheist, yeah? And I was talking to him, and I was giving him dawah, and I was saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's 7 heavens, and I was saying, look, it's talking about the ozone layer. Firstly, who am I to do tafsir of the Quran? Who preceded me to say that this means that? What? The first mistake. So I was coming and saying, no, there's 7 heavens, 7 ozone layer. He'll say, no, there's 5. I'm saying 7, he's saying 5. We're just going on, yeah? And what's so funny is that he goes, I said to him, you know what, let's go to the NASA page, yeah? He said, okay, let's go. We go to the NASA page. I'm saying 7, he's saying 5. Guess what NASA page says? 6. So, do you get it? What does that show? When we put our trust or make science the yardstick, which Brother Muhammad clearly said it can be a form of shirk, you're making that your yardstick. And wallahi is so dangerous, because imagine this, yeah? You come and say, you know what? You base your Quranic believing in Allah's word with science. Science says the universe is expanding. Good. You look at, science says that. You look at the Quran says, okay, the heavens and the earth was one and we expanded. Okay, good. Then you're like, oh, look, mashallah, hey, there you go, Islam is the truth because of this. Yeah? Imagine, science has come along, and this happens. This happens. Science has come along and go, you know what, we made a mistake. And they actually did this. A year ago, they said, we don't think the earth is expanding. So what are you going to do now? Throw away the Quran? What are you going to do? Because, oh my gosh, look, science is saying otherwise, there's a contradiction. What are you going to do? Leave Islam? And let's suppose you do. Wallahi, look how dangerous this is. Imagine you left Islam. I don't believe it, it's against science, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. And you die upon disbelief. You die upon disbelief. And these scientists come and say, you know what? We made a mistake. We made a big mistake. The earth is actually expanding. You lost your hereafter. Hereafter. Why? Because you put your trust in something that's man-made. And it cost you of dying in disbelief. And scientists are going to come. Science cannot give you absolute truth. Science will come and change and change and change and change. They'll keep changing. The Quran doesn't change. So put your trust in the Quran, not in science and man-made laws. By the way, how many feminists here? Don't be scared.
Yeah.
This is a very crucial point. Okay, yeah,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
mashallah. Three, four sisters, yeah? We're going to come to feminism. That's another man-made law, yeah? We're just going to cover it. The reason why we're going to cover it, because it's a growing problem within the Muslim community, especially with sisters, yeah? And most of the time, the sisters don't understand what feminism is, yeah? That's another question. We're going to come to that. I'm just getting a bit excited now, yeah? We've had a bit of a bad experience with feminism. Yeah, we support women's rights. We'll come to that anyway. Let's talk about how to prove the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the final messenger. We have three options. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was either truthful, he was a liar, or he was deluded. These are the three options we have, yeah? You pose to your atheist friend, Mark, Daniel, Richard, whatever you want to call him, yeah?
Neville.
Whatever his name is. You ask him, look, you go through the arguments again, yeah? Okay, why does a person lie? Why does a person lie?
To gain materialistic goods.
Yeah, agenda. They want to gain something. They're lying for something, yes? So we look at the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, life, and when he was preaching Islam, the Quraysh came and said, Muhammad, stop, we'll give you money, we'll make you our leader, we'll give you red camels. Red camels are like Ferraris today, if I'm not mistaken. They're like something big. Red camels, whatever you like, we'll give it to you. Just stop preaching, yeah? If the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a liar, he would have said, thank you, I'll stop preaching, that's what I wanted anyway. But the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, if you give the moon on my left and the sun in my right, or the other way around, you guys can correct me, I will not stop preaching. Does that sound like a liar?
No.
No way. No way. So we can say he can't be a liar. Good. Now he might come and say, you know what, maybe he's deluded. We'll say, okay, let's go with that. Let's suppose, yeah? When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, son died, what happened? The moon eclipsed, yeah? And his companions ran to him and said, oh Rasulullah, your son died, that's why the moon eclipsed. If a person is deluded, what would they do?
They'd agree.
They would say, you know what, yeah, this is my opportunity. Yeah, look, it happened, yes, because of me, my son died. See, I told you I'm a prophet. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, no, the moon doesn't eclipse for nobody's death. Does that sound like a deluded man? No, it doesn't. So he has to be truthful. And the reason why he's truthful is because he would say to the pagan Arabs, and wallahi, look at this, brothers and sisters, wallahi, he's mad. And you can see why some people, they deserve the hellfire. Wallahi, it's just, no doubt, may Allah protect us all. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said to them, if I told you, behind this mountain, there is an army coming to kill us, would you believe me? They say, we know you to be the truthful one. How can we reject? Of course. Because I'm telling you, I'm the messenger of Allah. And they're rejected. Wallahi, brothers, think about that. Think about it. They're saying, you are the truthful one. How can we doubt you? He goes, I'm telling you I'm the messenger of Allah. They're saying, we don't want to know. Wallahi, it's crazy. So that's in a nutshell, brothers. That's the Gorah, proving God, His oneness, revelation, and prophethood. Very simple. You can, like I said before, go look into it, shape up your own arguments, inshallah. Don't just rely on just what we just said. You can, but shape it up more, inshallah. Let's do a Q&A. We want to get straight into Q&A, inshallah.
Yes, brother. Yes, you.
I've heard from some physics theories that state that positons and electrons can come out of nothing. So when you have a vacuum, a positon and electron will come, they'll split, and then they'll come back, annihilate, and form gamma rays. So then they use that as an argument to say that something is coming out of nothing. If you have a vacuum, and then there's no other particles there, you would have these random positons and electrons coming out and annihilating themselves all the time. So is this something that you've heard of?
Yeah, I mean, the vacuum itself wouldn't be constituted as nothing, because it has to exist in a surrounding or an environment of some sorts. And so remember, going back to our definition of nothing being the absence of something, the vacuum is not an absence of something. If you say that nothing is an absence of particles, then okay, we can understand where you're coming from. But there's nothingness. It's not only just particles. We're talking about waves. We're talking about strings. We're talking about anything that could potentially exist. And to suggest that the vacuum has those characteristics would be incorrect.
Any more questions? Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Could you clarify what
Okay, so the question is basically, this is Mohammed's favorite topic. Like, not that he, like, the misconception. Just he likes answering it. Yeah, can you hit your wives in Islam? Does the Quran really teach this? Okay, it's basically lovely.
I think one of the feminists just stood up and said, "What? What's going on?" Let me stand up myself, not to do anything physical, man. Honestly. First of all, the asal, or you could say obviously the base, because it's the same in Turkish, isn't it? Is it? I don't know. You tell me. Is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, which is narrated in Tirmidhi, and is sahih according to the muhaddithin. He says, "La tadrubu ima Allah." He says, "Don't hit the women slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." In other words, don't hit your wives, don't hit your daughters, don't hit. This is clearly like a command to do a certain thing or not to do a certain thing. Now, obviously, when somebody, now this is one of the misconceptions actually, because a lot of people say that, well, Islam encourages the man to go and assault the wife or attack the wife or hit the wife or. No, the verse in question which they're referring to is in chapter 4 verse 34. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزُهُنَّ فَعِذُوهُنَّ وَهَجُّرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبْغُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا. This verse, let's see what this verse is talking about. But before I talk to you about this verse, there's an important precursor, or there's an important, something I have to sort of address first. The question is, if you say to, let's say a feminist, yeah? Bringing feminism back, I don't know who put their hands up before. If you say to a feminist, if you ask a feminist, right? If you ask a feminist, is it the case that in all situations, in a relationship between a man and a woman, that the man can never touch a woman against her will? You probably get a positive answer. Is it correct, yeah? No one's going to say no. Usually the woman will say, the man can never touch a woman against her will. Why? Because this is a show of brutality, it's a show of strength, and it shouldn't be done. It should always be verbal. It should never be that a man touches a woman against her. Well, let's say fine. Let's take that premise and run with it. If you look at the NSPCC, okay, and this might seem like a tangential point, but really it isn't. If you look at the NSPCC, they say something like 57,000 children are in danger on a yearly basis. And a lot of those kids that get abused, the kids that get abused, they get abused by their mothers. Now why? It's just not because mothers are more evil than fathers or something like this. It's just by virtue of the fact that women have more interaction time with their children. Now let's bring a scenario to try and bring the hypothesis into some kind of practical reality. Let's say the man is witnessing his wife hit his child. Let's say, for example, let's say he hit the child in a way which is destructive to the child's health. Is it, in this context, is it okay for the man to physically touch the woman against her will? So I think the majority of society would say, yeah, absolutely, that's fine. Why? Because the lesser of two evils here. We're talking about the child being defended, yeah? Fine. So we have, and this is an important point. Why? Because we have been able to find an immediate exception to the rule of, okay, a man is never allowed to hit a woman, touch a woman against her will, yeah? Some would say, look, it's possible in this situation that the man can restrain the woman and even use heavy-handed tactics, especially if the child is at risk of fatality or death. Okay, so we found an exception. Let's ask another, maybe secondary question. What if the man is being hit by the woman himself? Can he defend himself? Is he allowed to defend himself? Now, if the base is equality in all cases, I mean, a feminist would have to say, okay, yeah, at least he can defend himself. He shouldn't maybe attack in a way which would endanger the woman. But the man would say, well, the feminist would have to concede. Yes, in this situation, he's allowed to at least resist. Even if that means you're allowed to touch a woman against her will. So once again, we've broken the rule that we thought we'd never be able to break. That a man can never touch a woman against her will. So if that is the case, how do we reconcile this verse? The verse says, وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزُهُنَّ, the ones who you fear the rebellion from. Yeah, and it says فَعِذُوهُنَّ, then warn them. وَهْجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ, and then kind of leave them, don't have sexual intercourse with them. And the Quranic terminology says that the next phase is to turn away from them in the beds. وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ, this daraba phase is actually the third phase. So in a nutshell, this verse cannot be telling a man how to be his wife, because the hadith tells us not to be our wives. This verse is telling a man how to defend himself against his wife, who is rebellious. And had this verse not been there, the man would have found it in his own, he would have used his own devices. He wouldn't have just done daraba, which by the way is used in other parts of the Quran as indicating, literally touching something symbolically. Like وَآخَرُونَ يَضْرِبُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ يَبْتَغُونَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. That, you know, some people, they touch the soil of the ground so that they can, in other words, they do tayammum. Now, having said this, if this is the case, the question is, should a man be allowed to defend himself? That's actually the question that we're asking here. If the woman is rebellious in this way, in the ways that I've mentioned, but also in other ways, because there's not just two ways that I've just mentioned here, which are quite extreme, but there are a multiplicity of ways in which a woman can actually be rebellious, and if he fears that, okay, I need to do something about it, the Quran doesn't say hit the woman. Think about it. The Quran actually says, فَعِذُوهُنَّ. It says then warn them, tell them not to do this anymore. Now the question is now, how comes, and the feminists will say, okay, we understand where you're coming from, but why is it that this verse has come to a man, and there's no such equivalent verse that has come to a woman? Now you're gonna, okay, first of all, we don't accept the premise of feminism. This is the first answer. Because actually, yes, the premise, if you're saying that, okay, equality, we believe that generally to be true in spiritual matters, etc., no problem. But the relationship between husband and wife has to be not understood in the lens of feminism. And if it is, it's going to be misunderstood. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, that men are maintainers and protectors over women. Which, and we know from the Islamic tradition that if there's tanazu', if there is basically a disagreement between the two individuals, because the woman has been given already 3 times as much rights as a mother, yes, then the father, then the man, in this circumstance, is allowed to give the final decision so long as it doesn't infringe her rights. We know that. In this context, we understand that the husband's right to a final decision, where there's gridlock between the two partners, is higher than the woman's right. In the context of husband-wife relationship. We do understand that from Islam. So, that's why feminism, by the way, as a side note, is not compatible with Islam. Because a feminist would argue that, you know, we have to have equality everywhere. Well, equality does not exist everywhere in Islam. And it's very difficult to try and justify that. Try and enforce that. Going back to the verse, so the feminist will ask, why is it that there is not an equivalent verse for the woman? Say, wait a minute, there is an equivalent verse for the woman, but you just didn't look. Potentially because you were trying to find some mistakes or problems in the interaction between men and women. The verse in the Quran is in the same surah actually, chapter 4 of the Quran, I think verse either 124 or 128, but you can double check. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا أَوْ إِعْرَاضًا فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يَصَلَّحَ بَيْنَهُمَا صُلْحًا وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if a woman fears from her husband, and here, look, going back to the verse that we said before, is only the word nushuz is mentioned, which means rebellion. Here there's 2 words that are mentioned. Nushuz, rebellion, أو إعراض, which means basically being left, like the man has neglected her, neglect. If she fears either of those 2 things, then it's within the woman's right to start a reconciliation process with the man. Now we know that the reconciliation process can take different kinds of forms. And both of them will have to be involved in that reconciliation process as per the ayah. Now the question would be that how comes the Quran gives a different ruling for a man and to the woman? The answer is simple, because the man is stronger usually than the woman. It wouldn't make sense for the Quran to instruct a woman to do something which would be disadvantageous for her. In other words, if the Quran had told the woman to touch a man, yes, in a way which would show her displeasure of him, then that would put her in a way, in a disadvantageous state, because the man can respond in a stronger way, in a better way than she can do anything to him in the first place. Usually that is the case. And by the way, feminists don't disagree with this. They usually say that it's true that men are stronger than women. And let's be honest, I mean, only an idiot would, sorry to be crude here, but would disagree with the general reality that men are stronger than women. So from that angle, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't give a woman a task to do where she would have the lower hand. Why would he do that? If the woman initiated such a process, then she would be in a disadvantageous state. To sum up though, in terms of using let's say the third rule, we would say, despite all that we've said, Rasulullah said in the hadith that the best of you are those who don't do stage 3. And Imam al-Shafi'i, he reiterated that in his madhab, and therefore we would say we would never encourage any man to even touch a woman against her will. Because you don't need to do that, let's say. Unless we talked about those situations where she's abusing the children or something like that, where you need to defend yourself, or she goes to hit your mum, or things like that. If she's not doing that, then I would say stick to what the Prophet did, the Sunnah of Rasulullah, which is to discuss it with her, and if she continues, then just go to the stage 2 and maybe leave her after that. Because, this is probably the best advice I can give. So that's our position. But generally speaking, you have to understand, one last thing I'll say, is that in order for you to have a healthy understanding of Islam, you cannot superimpose a feministic understanding. Because a lot of these questions have a feministic presupposition, and you don't need that. Feminism is a subjective morality which is invented by, let's say, women in the 1960s, the second wave of feminism. It has no method of proving itself to be an objective truth. And I challenge any of them, not to be polemical, but I challenge any feminist to come and prove to me how feminism is true, in the same way as I try to do with Islam. You will never be able to do it. It's impossible, because morals are all subjective anyways. Unless we're talking about those which come from religion, and that's what we're talking about. It's a bit long, isn't it? Okay, we'll leave it as that. Yeah? Jazakallah khair.
إن المصدقين والمصدقات وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا يضاعف لهم ولهم أجر كريم